Hey everyone, Victor is here, and in this video I want to talk about the structure and properties of alcohols. So first of all, what exactly is an alcohol? We define an alcohol as an OH that is connected to an sp3 hybridized carbon, while there are no other heteroatoms or functional groups connected to that carbon. So, for instance, these three molecules are all alcohols. I have butanol, which is my first molecule, where I do have an OH connected to an sp3 hybridized atom. Likewise, I have cyclohexanol next, and next I have this hydroxyketone, and that is still an alcohol because OH is connected to an sp3 hybridized atom, and the ketone functional group that we have here is further away in the molecule and not connected to the same carbon. And that's a very important distinction because just because a molecule might have an OH group, that doesn't automatically make it into an alcohol. For instance, the next three molecules, they all have an OH group, but neither is an alcohol. The first one has my OH connected to an sp2 hybridized atom, which is the part of this aromatic ring, so that is a phenol. The next one has OH right next to a carbonyl, which makes a carboxylic acid. And in my last example, I have an OH sitting on a double bond, which makes an enol. And since we define functional groups as a specific set of atoms that have very unique chemical properties, just because we have an OH, it doesn't mean that other molecule with an OH group will have the same unique chemical properties. There is of course going to be some overlap, like let's say phenols and alcohols, they do have certain amount of overlap in their chemistry, but there are certain reactions that phenols can do which alcohols cannot, and likewise there are reactions that alcohols can do which phenols cannot do. Same can be said about the carboxylic acids, enols, and many other functional groups containing OHs. So always keep that in mind, that not everything with an OH is an alcohol. Alcohol has to have an OH connected to an sp3 hybridized carbon, and nothing else is sitting on that carbon. Alright, so moving on, let's talk about the physical properties of alcohols. When comparing alcohols to many other organic substances, we're going to see that alcohols have abnormally high polarity and very high boiling points. And that is due to the fact that we have that OH group that we already know that we have, and that OH group is capable of hydrogen bonding. And to show you how drastic those changes can be, let's look at the following three molecules. The first one is ethane, just a simple alkane, and we can see that in that case our boiling point is negative 89 degrees. So at normal room temperature, that one is a gas. The next one, chloroethane, is also a gas at room temperature because it boils at 12 degrees. But as soon as we have the OH group and we have ethanol, then now we have a boiling point of 78 degrees, which is definitely already a liquid at room temperature. And although I do have a dedicated tutorial on hydrogen bonding, I'm going to remind you here really quickly that the hydrogen bonding exists between the hydrogen which is sandwiched between two electronegative elements like fluorine, oxygen, or nitrogen. So alcohols can be both hydrogen bonding donors and hydrogen bonding acceptors. And as I've mentioned, if you need a refresher, I do have a tutorial on that too, so I'll leave the link down below. Now, as a consequences of the hydrogen bonding that OH can make, the alcohols, they typically have a pretty good solubility in water, and often you can hear a rule of thumb which is called a 4-carbon rule, which essentially means that each OH in your molecule can drag up to 4 carbons with it into the aqueous solution. So to give you an example, let's look at this lineup of alcohols starting with methanol and finishing with the pentanol. In this lineup here, you can see that the first three examples, my methanol, ethanol, and propanol, they have correspondingly 1 carbon, 2 carbons, and 3 carbons, are perfectly miscible with water. As soon as I hit that 4th carbon with butanol, I'm already experiencing some difficulties, and butanol is not perfectly miscible with water in random quantities. We can only dissolve 73 grams per liter. And if I add the fifth carbon in the case of pentanol, we can see that solubility drops drastically. Of course, the nature of that carbon skeleton does matter, and how exactly it looks will affect the properties too. If we have a very bulky, very branched chain connected to our OH, that is going to give us a harder time for molecules to interact with each other. So the bulkier the group is, the less intermolecular forces, the less intermolecular interactions we are going to have between the molecules. And here I have the next lineup for you between the 4 different isomers of butanol, starting with the linear 1-butanol and finishing with the most branched, the 3rd butanol. And you can see how the boiling point drops from 118 degrees all the way down to 82 degrees, because once we hit our 3rd butanol, the hydrophobic end that we have here surrounding our OH will essentially prevent OHs to interact with each other. Let me redraw it here so I can illustrate it with a slightly different picture. So we have the hydrophobic or non-polar part of the molecule, which I'm highlighting here with red, and we have the hydrophilic or polar part of the molecule, which I'm highlighting with this blue color. And the bulkier that hydrophobic part is, the harder for the molecules to interact with each other, and if the molecules don't have efficient interaction, efficient intermolecular forces, the easier it is to boil our molecules and to rip those molecules one from another. And since I have started talking about the hydrogen bonding and polarity of alcohols in general, it is also very important to notice that alcohols do possess certain acid-base properties. Alcohols can serve as acids. The typical pKa that we are going to see for alcohols is usually somewhere between 16 and 18, which makes them into rather weak acids, but nonetheless, if we have a stronger base, we can deprotonate them. And especially if we do need to have a complete deprotonation for some purposes, like maybe for the Williamson ether synthesis or some other chemistry, we definitely want to use a very strong base. Like for instance, in this case, I'm using sodium hydride, which is a very strong base, and the equilibrium point in this case is going to be 10 to the 19th power, which is a huge number, so the equilibrium constant here is essentially not even an equilibrium. Not to mention that the co-product that we are forming in this case, H2, that is a gas, so that guy is just going to fly away. Alternatively, we can do the redox chemistry, and instead of the sodium or lithium or potassium hydride, we can use the alkali metal itself, like said sodium, lithium or potassium, and in that case the reaction is going to look very similar. It's also going to give us the corresponding alkoxide, and it is also going to give you H2 gas, but that is no longer an acid-base chemistry, that is actually a reduction and oxidation reaction. Because in this case, sodium does go from the oxidation state of 0 to the oxidation state of +1, while in my previous case, sodium was positively charged and it is still positively charged. And since we are talking about the acid-base properties of the alcohols, it is important to quickly review the different factors that might potentially affect the acidity of alcohols. If we are going to go through the typical laundry list of the factors, and we are just looking at the alcohols by themselves, then the resonance is not really going to be a factor, because the alcohol, the OH group in the alcohol, is connected to the sp3 hybridized carbon, so there can be no resonance there. The atomic size is not really going to be a factor either, simply because we are dealing with alcohol, so it's just the oxygen where the conjugate base is going to have the negative charge. Similarly, electronegativity and hybridization are also not going to be a factor, because again, we are just talking about the OH. So the only thing that is actually going to make any difference in the acidity of alcohols is going to be the inductive effects. So, for instance, if I look at these two alcohols, both of those are ethanols. However, the one on the right has 3 fluorines on the second carbon away from the oxygen, and because of the inductive effect that we have from this fluorine, fluorine really pulls the electron density towards itself. Once we have a conjugate base on our oxygen, once that oxygen is negatively charged, due to the induction, the molecule on the right will be more stable, and because of that, overall, that is going to be a much stronger acid. And we also see that in the pKa difference, where the ethanol by itself has a pKa of about 16, while trifluoroethanol has a pKa of about 12.5. And since we are talking about the logarithmic scale here, we're talking about more than 1,000 times difference in acidity of those compounds. But of course, if we look at other compounds containing OH, like maybe phenols, carboxylic acids, etc., then other factors might play a role as well, like resonance or maybe atomic size of whatever else is participating in this molecule or whatnot might be the case. But for the alcohols themselves, as I've mentioned, we are just looking at the OH connected to an sp3 hybridized carbon, so neither resonance, atomic size, electronegativity or hybridization will play any role there. And while I'm talking about the different factors affecting alcohol acidity, I do want to talk about the solvation effect. So remember this picture from before? Well, if that is an acid, or we are going to treat this alcohol as an acid, and I were to remove the proton from my terbutanol here, I'm going to get exactly the same idea, but now my oxygen atom that I have over here, that guy is now surrounded by my solvent, presumably more alcohol molecules, and that creates the solvation shell. And here is the problem with those alcohols. The bulkier that hydrophobic group that we have, the bulkier the carbon chain that we have on our alcohol, the less of the solvation effect we are going to have, and the less negative charge is going to be stabilized. So typically, bulky alcohols, they are significantly less acidic than the smaller, more lean alcohols, if you want to put it this way. If, let's say, I were to compare butanol, just a regular 1-butanol, where the chain is linear, well, the pKa of that molecule is about 16, while the pKa of the third butanol that I have over here on the screen, that one is about 17 to 18, depending on the source. So when there are no obvious inductive effects in your molecule, consider the solvation effects, and the bulkier groups are going to make your alcohol less acidic and increase that pKa value. And if you're covering the alcohol chapter in your class right now, I suggest next you check out my video on the alcohol nomenclature or the overview of the alcohol reactions that we are going to typically see within the scope of the introductory organic chemistry. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time!